pretty safe to say that Turf War is more or less the main mode of Splatoon, and probably the most straightforward. In a previous video I discussed strategies that at the time I felt were the most beneficial for success in Turf War, but since that video my ideas have developed and there are a few things I want to amend. So here are my personal tips for winning a round of Turf War. This is what's been working for me, anyway. Previously I stated that when it comes to choosing which control scheme to use, motion or sticks only, I felt that there was no superior option. There was a lot of conversation around that comment from both sides of the fence. Since then, I've come to the realisation that motion controls are better at the end of the day. It really is what you personally are most comfortable with, but motion controls do give you an advantage, if you can figure them out. The main thing to consider with them, and where I think a lot of people misunderstand, is what motion controls actually involve. In reality, you're still aiming with the right stick. However, the motion controls of the controller can give you much better precision and accuracy that is harder to achieve than with just the stick. I've seen it be compared to mouse and keyboard multiple times, and it's a pretty apt comparison. To explain it as simply as possible, you point yourself in the direction you need with the right stick, then fine tune your aim by tilting the controller. Personally, I only use motion controls for my vertical aiming. Almost all of my horizontal aiming is still done with the stick. This is probably putting me at a disadvantage, but it's what I've found to be the most comfortable and most reliable for me. Since getting used to the motion controls, I've found aiming in other games using just the sticks to be quite limiting. I wish games on other consoles would implement them, especially seeing as the PlayStation 4 controller has a gyro. Previously I felt that the best way to start a round of Turf War is to build your special as quickly as possible by inking the map closer to your spawn. Through play and through conversations with other players, I've since found that this can put you at a disadvantage early on. While it does benefit you to get your special as quickly as possible, this can still be achieved through means other than just inking your base at the beginning, which I see other players doing quite often. If you do ink the entirety of your base at the beginning, you deprive yourself and your teammates of special charge that could be gained after respawning. But as the spawn is already inked, there is nowhere to charge your special after a respawn. Don't stress about inking your base yet. As the match progresses and you and your teammates respawn, you'll find more opportunities to ink your side of the map. So, at the beginning of a round, race towards the enemy base as quickly as you can, charging your special as much as possible by inking as you move. As you begin to reach the middle of the map, it's ideal to start inking as much turf as possible. This both contributes to your special charge and can give you a combat advantage, as the more ground you own, the more space you have for hiding and maneuverability. If your team manages to take dominance over the middle of the map, you can move into the next phase. Maintaining control. Port Mackerel gives a clear visual example of what I mean. It's not so clear in maps such as Humpback Pump Track. But this is an ideal situation for your team to find itself in. Once you've taken dominance over at least 2/3 of a map, the next step is to ensure that you maintain your lead and that the opposing team can never leave their third of the map and reclaim any turf. This is done by keeping the enemy preoccupied with combat, and obviously cleaning up any ink that they manage to lay. However, it falls apart if your team is getting splattered or the enemy is getting past you. Unless you're playing with people you know, it's unlikely you'll be able to communicate with your team beyond the quick messages you send with the D-pad. Keep in mind your team's positions and work in a way to ensure that you're keeping all bases covered. Are you better off sticking with one other teammate, or moving off in your own to hold down a possible escape route from the enemy? Also, keep a careful eye on the map behind you, checking for any possible enemies who have snuck away or begun laying ink. Always have the upper hand. If your team has got the enemy on the back foot, then you've got the opportunity to set yourself up with an advantage with any engagements. What do I mean? Well, it might be a few things, but for me it means baiting and camping. Consider potential enemy travel routes and hide behind a corner surrounded by your own ink. The enemy will have to telegraph their position by inking the turf near you. Be patient, let them pass by, then attack when their back is turned. There's a reason why camping works in nearly every competitive game, and you can't get salty about it. Hiding is one of the main mechanics of Splatoon, and you need to take every advantage. Just make sure you actually are playing the objective. What if the enemy is winning? Well, first of all, don't push in alone. If your teammates are waiting to spawn, wait for them. You put yourself at a disadvantage swimming in alone and trying to fight while outnumbered. You'll likely be splattered and your team will be down a player. If your team is alive, but are in combat, it's probably best not to jump to them. It's a risky move and usually ends with getting splattered. Remember, when you super jump, your landing position is highlighted for everyone to see, so if an enemy sees it, they're probably going to wait for you. So, you need to either take out the enemy and start inking the map, or, if this is proving difficult, make an effort to sneak around the front line and start inking further towards the enemy spawn. This can cause a variety of things. If the enemy notices, it can pull them back to your position, allowing your team to push forward. Otherwise, you're giving your team a position to super jump to and join you, right under the enemy's noses. I've seen many games flip right in the last moments of a match thanks to teammates who have managed to break away from the fight and sneak behind the enemy. Finally, don't ink the walls. It's great for manoeuvrability, but don't be like this chump. It doesn't add to your team's score or your special. It's just embarrassing.
Got any tips to share or suggestions for another video? Comment below, and thanks for watching.